HOTEP. Welcome to the African History Network show. It is Dr. King's birthday. Today is Friday, January 15th, 2021. Been a very busy day. I had to do Roland Martin Unfiltered today. I'm a panelist each Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered, so many of you all got to check that out. And on our Sunday night show, we'll share some excerpts of the conversation today. And also, we spoke with actor and director Nate Parker about a new movie that he has out now called American Skin. So we'll talk some on our Sunday show about what we discussed today on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Of course, we talked some more about the insurrection that took place and the fallout from that. And very interesting discussion. Okay, so on today's show, so we have another development that came out late today, and Washington Post has a big article. Capitol Police Intelligence report warned 3 days before attack that Congress itself would be targeted. Capitol Police Intelligence report warned 3 days before attack that Congress itself would be targeted. Okay, now this is contradictory to some initial reports that we heard that said there were no specific or direct attacks. You know, we've been covering this here on the show each day. So we'll talk about this story from the Washington Post, and then there was a big article from there was a big story from the Associated Press and Reuters. Other outlets picked this up, but this deals with feds are backing away, and they updated the story a couple of times. So I want to make sure I get it right, but they're saying there's no, right now, they're backing away from saying there was direct evidence of a plot to kill or assassinate elected officials. And if we look at, I was looking at the one from Associated Press. Feds back away from claim of assassination plot at Capitol. And they're saying just based upon the information now, and it's a little confusing. We're going to try to break this down here. There's an article from the Associated Press. Feds back away from claim of assassination plot at Capitol. Federal prosecutors who initially said there was quote unquote strong evidence the pro-Trump mob that stormed the U.S. Capitol last week aimed to quote capture and assassinate elected officials end quote backed away from the allegation after the head of the investigation cautioned Friday that the probe is still in its early stages and there was no quote direct evidence end quote of such intentions. Okay, so I guess they're saying as of yet, but we'll break this down a little bit. Then we'll talk some about Dr. King. Dr. King was born January 15th, 1929. This is Dr. King's 92nd birthday. And we'll talk some more about Dr. King on our show Sunday night. You know, we're here 6 nights a week, and we're here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time. And then Sundays, we're here 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're here 2 hours on Sunday. So we'll talk some more about Dr. King on Sunday. But today I'm going to share excerpts of a interview that Dr. King did with NBC News back in May of 1967. May of 1967. And this was 1 year. This was actually 11 months before he was assassinated. Okay. It's from May of 1967. And it's dealing with beyond civil rights, Black power. Beyond Civil Rights, Black Power. Okay, and it's from NBC News, and they re-released it in 2018, digitally remastered. It's in total 26 minutes, but it's an excellent interview that Dr. King did in May of 1967. And we know tragically he was assassinated April 4th, 1968. All right. So we'll talk about those topics today. Then we have some birthday acknowledgments as well. And we'll talk about some celebrities who are celebrating their birthdays today. And today is also the Founders Day for the Sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. This is J15. So happy Founders Day to them. And then also January 16th is Founders Day for my sisters of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. All right, so happy Founders Day to them as well. It will be the 101st Founders Day. All right, so on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then also, speaking of sex, I'm going to have to reach out to Kenya K. Stevens of the Progressive Love Academy. We're going to have to do another video. I'm reading a lot of articles. So we're going to do another video. You know, we did one. Interviewed her, was it December? No, it was Black Friday weekend, around Black Friday weekend. And we talked about, female, we talked about having powerful orgasms, things like that. So we'll do something, it's not on 910, it's on Facebook, okay? But go check that out. Go to the African History Network and click on videos, okay? Because we had a very, very interesting discussion. All right, now, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And we were talking about women having more powerful orgasms and helping women do that. All right, so check that out. Check out those videos. And it's on our YouTube channel, Michael M. Hotep, IMHOTEP as well. Okay, I want to jump into this first topic here before we go to break. And then, we see some of the AKAs on our timeline right now. So, okay. And then J13 was Delta Sigma Theta. I was looking on Facebook. I got all these Facebook friends who are Deltas and AKAs. I think half my graduating class, half the women in my graduating class from high school either pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha or Delta Sigma Theta at Cass Technical High School in Detroit. But I want to go to this story here from the Washington Post. They have an exclusive story. Capitol Police Intelligence Report warned 3 days before attack that Congress itself could be targeted. Okay, so 3 days before thousands of rioters converged on the U.S. Capitol, an internal Capitol Police Intelligence Report warned of a violent scenario in which, quote, Congress itself, end quote, Congress itself could be the target of angry supporters of President Trump on January 6th, laying out a stark alert that deepens questions about the security failures that day. Now, in the 12-page report on January 3rd, 2021, the intelligence unit of the Congressional Police Force described how thousands of enraged protesters, egged on by Trump and flanked by white supremacists and extreme militia groups, were likely to stream into Washington, D.C. armed for battle. All right. Now, this is different than what we were told, what we were initially told, and what the Capitol Police were initially saying that they did not have any credible, any actual, like, direct credible threats. All right. So this time the focus of their ire would be members of Congress, the report said. This time the focus of their ire would be members of Congress. Quote, supporters of the current president see January 6, 2021, as the supporters of the current president see January 6, 2021 as the last opportunity to overturn the results of the presidential election, end quote, according to the memo, portions of which were obtained by the Washington Post. Quote, this sense of desperation and disappointment may lead to more of an incentive to become violent. This sense of desperation and disappointment may lead to more of an incentive to become violent. Unlike previous post-election protests, the targets of the pro-Trump supporters, are not necessarily the counter protesters as they were previously, but rather Congress itself is the target on the 6th, end quote. Now, the internal report, which does not appear to have been shared widely with other law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, was among a number of flags that security experts say should have alerted officials to the high security risks on January 6th. Okay, so as more and more information was coming out over subsequent days, it turns out that there was not a lack of information. There was not a lack of information or security information that was coming out. Is what it turns out is there was a lack of information actually being shared and coordinated with different agencies. Now, if you remember, we talked earlier in the week, there was a story from, there was one from NBC News, and let me see if we're going to try to pull this one up here, but it was dealing with how the FBI and the New York Police Department had sent warnings also. Okay, and I'll try to pull up that article as well. But as more and more information comes out, then this is causing me to have more and more questions. Okay, because I've been following this. I've been following this every day since the attack took place, January 6th. FBI memo. Let's see. Okay, that's dealing with attacks on U.S. capitals. FBI report warned of war at Capitol, contradicting claims there was no indication of looming violence. So this was from January 12, 2021, from the Washington Post. Okay, FBI report warned of war at Capitol, contradicting claims there was no indication of looming violence. So as more information comes out, then this caused me to start asking more questions and what would happen? What happened? Because the information was there. So I'm asking the question, what happened? If you go back to this article here from the Washington Post, a day before the attack, an FBI office in Virginia issued an explicit warning that some
Hi,
ex-
I'm Hunter Ellis.
that some
And this-
extremists that some extremists we're on commercial break. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes. This is the African History Network show. Stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. All right, stand by, everybody. How's everybody doing? We got Eagle Hawk, Sandra, Dupree, Diane, O'Glenn, TJ. Some congressperson held tours on January 5th. Yeah. Some Republican Congress people held tours on January 5th. This is what Representative Mikey Sherrill, Democrat of New Jersey, was saying. Jacqueline, welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Friday, January 15th, 2021. And we're live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. I want to go back to this article here from the Washington Post. Capitol Police Intelligence Report, and we're going to pull this up here on the screen share also, so those watching on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, can see this. Capitol Police Intelligence Report warned 3 days before attack that Congress itself could be targeted. Capitol Police Intelligence Report warned 3 days before attack that Congress itself could be targeted. Okay, so this article is from January 15, 2021, from the Washington Post. So it goes on to say, a day before the attack, an FBI office in Virginia issued an explicit warning that some extremists were preparing to travel to Washington and threatening to commit violence and quote unquote war. Dozens of people on a terrorist watch list were in D.C. the day of the riot, including many suspected white supremacists, as the Washington Post previously reported. On Friday, the inspectors general of 4 federal agencies announced that they will investigate how security officials prepared for and responded to the pro-Trump rally that preceded the attack on the Capitol. Two people familiar with the Capitol Police Intelligence Memo, who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe security preparation, said the report was conveyed to all Capitol Police Command staff by the intelligence unit's director. Okay, they said the report was conveyed to all Capitol Police Command staff by the intelligence unit's director. Jack Donahue. Another law enforcement official said the report prompted the Capitol Police Chief that's Stephen Sund, I guess referring to the Capitol Police Chief on January 6th, Stephen Sund. He has since then resigned. Prompted the Capitol Police Chief to seek the emergency activation of the National Guard and led the department to place its perimeter barricades farther from the Capitol than during past events. Capitol Police spokeswoman Eva Malecki declined to comment on the intelligence report's contents or how it was used to plan security for the protest that day. See, I'm still confused when spokespeople for the Capitol Police don't want to speak. I'm confused when spokespeople for the Capitol Police don't want to speak. It's just like the article from ProPublica that we talked about yesterday, dealing with the complaints that African American Capitol Police officers have been making for years, and the lawsuit goes back to 2001, and you had 250 African American police officers complaining about discrimination and racism on the job, things like this. ProPublica has a big story. We talked about this on our Thursday show, and it's been re-airing on our social media platforms. We re-air these shows throughout the day usually. No one took us seriously. Black cops warned about racist Capitol Police officers for years. No one took us seriously. Black cops warned about racist Capitol Police officers for years. Okay, now I know there were Capitol Police, and like the majority of them on January 6th, that did the best they could do to fight against 8,000 insurrectionists, Trump supporters, domestic terrorists, many of them. I understand that. Okay, I'm not talking about the ones who did their jobs. We're talking about a specific group of people here. But once again, when you look at the article from ProPublica, it talks about how the Capitol Police declined to comment. And this is a big story coming out about racism and complaints, a lot of complaints of discrimination, things like that have gone ignored in the Capitol Police Department, the Washington, D.C. Capitol Hill Police Department. So I just find it interesting how they don't want to comment. I would think this would be the opportunity to comment, because Capitol Police, I don't think they've done a press conference about what has happened. Now, outgoing Chief of Police Stephen Sund he did an exclusive interview with the Washington Post, and we talked about that here as well. And we'll pull up that article so you can check that out. Also, outgoing Capitol Chief, House, Senate security officials hamstrung efforts to call in National Guard. So what is now this is the exclusive article the Washington Post did with the outgoing police chief, and this was on January 10th, 2021. Okay, and each day it seems like more and more pointing in opposite directions. Each day it seems like more and more pointing in opposite directions. But somebody dropped the ball here. There was ample evidence. There was not a lack of intelligence. Well, maybe there was a lack of intelligence. I mean, the intelligence was there. Somebody wasn't intelligent enough to read it or something. I don't know. I'm going through trying to figure this out, and day after day, more information comes out that causes me to have more questions. But if we go back to the article from today from the Washington Post, So Capitol Police spokeswoman Eva Malecki declined to comment on the intelligence report's contents or how it was used to plan security for the protest that day. Now, former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund, who resigned in the wake of the siege when Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer demanded his resignation, he said in an interview Friday that it would be inappropriate to publicly discuss an internal intelligence memo given its sensitive nature and the risk of revealing sources and methods. But he said he was familiar with the department's intelligence reports, which he said guided security planning. Now, Stephen Sund previously told the Washington Post in an interview Sunday that in the days immediately preceding the attack, he grew concerned that additional security measures were needed. He asked top congressional security officials for permission to declare an emergency and activate the National Guard, a request he said was rebuffed. Okay, now he talks about that in the January 10th article from Washington Post. All right, he was asking for additional help. It was rebuffed, and then he was on the phone when they're being overran by Trump supporters. He's on the phone with the Secretary of Defense trying to get the National Guard in. They refuse. So he said he asked top congressional security officers for permission to declare an emergency and activate the National Guard, and the request, and he said that request was rebuffed. Quote, "We looked at the intelligence," he said. "We knew we would have large crowds, the potential for some violent altercations. I had nothing indicating we would have a large mob seize the Capitol." Okay, you know, yeah, I don't know what to say. It's like it's something like really, really wrong here. Uh, I'm looking at people point the finger in different directions, and it seems like to save themselves. We looked at the intelligence. We knew we would have large crowds, the potential for some violent altercations. I had nothing indicating we would have a large mob seize the Capitol, he said. Nevertheless, the January 3rd intelligence report produced by his former agency, so the Capitol Police, includes chilling descriptions of the ferocity of the combat that activists appeared to be planning on forums where white supremacists and followers of the alt-right movement gather, presaging the mayhem days later. The report said organizers were urging Trump supporters to come armed with guns and to bring specialized combat gear, including gas masks and military-style bulletproof vests called plate carriers, to Washington on January 6th. So it's like, how I'm trying to figure out how you find all this evidence after the fact, and why people weren't properly prepared beforehand. But then, because see, I had like a ton of articles on this stuff, and I'm going through each day putting these pieces together, and I'm sitting back, and it's either so one, I come to the conclusion somebody's lying. Two, so I'm not even talking about the potential for Republican Congress people to have helped on the inside and give information and floor plans and things like that to the insurrectionists. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about those who's supposed to be preparing to defend the Capitol and the Congress people. Okay, so one of the first one of the first hints that something was really wrong was the article from the Associated Press from January 7th. I'm going to see if I can pull this up here, because the article from January 7th is dealing with how there were some warnings, and the warnings were basically ignored. Okay, and I got to see if I can find that article from Associated Press. We'll pull it. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Capitol Police rejected offers of federal help to quell mob. Capitol Police rejected offers of federal help to quell mob. Okay. So now this is from the day after. I'm going to pull this one up here also, because I'm going through looking at all this, and I'm like, somebody's lying. Let me pull this one up also. This is from Associated Press. We talked about this the day it came out. I'm going through looking at all this, and I'm like, somebody's lying. 313-778-7600 is a call-in number if you have a question or comment. Okay, so this is from the Associated Press, January 7th, 2021. This is the day after the insurrectionist attack. This story comes out. Capitol Police rejected offers of federal help to quell mob. 3 days, and I'm going to blow this up. I want you to see this here. 3 days before supporters of Donald Trump rioted at the Capitol, at the Capitol, the Pentagon asked the U.S. Capitol Police if it needed National Guard manpower. And so this is 3 days before. So that was on a Wednesday. So this would be Sunday. Okay. 3 days before supporters of Donald Trump rioted at the Capitol, the Pentagon asked the U.S. Capitol Police if it needed National Guard manpower. And as the mob descended on the Capitol building on Wednesday, Justice Department leaders reached out to offer up FBI agents. They're calling the Capitol Police. The Justice Department offers to send FBI agents. The Capitol Police turned them down both times, according to senior defense officials and 2 people familiar with the matter. Despite plenty of warnings of a possible insurrection and ample resources and time to prepare, the Capitol Police planned only for a free speech demonstration. So somebody's lying. Okay, and I'm trying to figure out who exactly is, or it's multiple people. But somebody's lying. All of it can't be true all at the same time. I don't think. Maybe in the alternate universe it is, but I don't think so. Okay, let me just continue with this for a minute here, and then we have any callers? Kevin, let me know. Calling number is 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. So,
yeah, we got no callers right now.
Oh, okay, thanks. All right. A day before the attack, an FBI officer in Virginia issued an explicit warning that some extremists were preparing to travel to Washington and threatening to commit violence and war. And dozens of people on the terrorist watch list were in D.C. the day of the riot, including many suspected white supremacists, as the Washington Post previously reported. Okay, and we've talked about that here. Each day, we've been updating you on what's going on and all the information that's coming out. Let me pull this back up here. All right. So on Friday, the inspectors general of 4 federal agencies announced that they will investigate how security officials prepared for and responded to the pro-Trump rally that preceded the attack on the Capitol. 2 people familiar with the Capitol Police intelligence memo Okay, and General Russell Honore, Nancy Pelosi announced today that General Russell Honore is going to head up this investigation into what exactly happened, okay, with the security. Now, two people familiar with the Capitol Police intelligence memo, who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe security preparations, said the report was conveyed to all Capitol Police command staff by the intelligence unit's director, Jack Donahue. Another law enforcement official said the report prompted the Capitol Police chief to seek the emergency activation of the National Guard and led the department to place its perimeter barricades farther from the Capitol than during past events. Okay. Now, former Capitol Police Chief Steven Sund previously told the Washington Post in an interview Sunday that in the days immediately preceding the attack, he grew concerned that additional security measures were needed. He asked top congressional security officials for permission to declare an emergency and activate the National Guard, a request he said they rebuffed. Quote, "We looked at the intelligence. We knew we would have large crowds, the potential for some violent altercations. I had nothing indicating we would have a large mob seize the Capitol," he said, end quote. All right. Now, the report said organizers were urging Trump supporters to come armed with guns. The memo concluded that January 6th was shaping up to potentially be a perfect storm of danger because of the size of the expected crowds, the urgency of the group's mission, the call for demonstrators to bring lethal weapons, the location of the two largest protests in proximity to the Capitol grounds, and the fact that, quote, both have been promoted by President Trump himself, end quote. Both have been promoted by President Trump himself, end quote. Now, keep in mind, Donald Trump had 88 million Twitter followers. Okay. Now, of course, you know, every tweet is not read by all his followers, but it gets tens of thousands of people reading or more, retweets. Okay. And then some of the tweets are picked up and discussed on news programs, cable news, etc. Quote, the Stop the Steal protest in particular does not have a permit, but several high-profile speakers, including members of Congress, are expected to speak at the event, end quote, the document stated. This combined with Stop the Steal's propensity to attract white supremacists, militia members, and others who actively promote violence may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and the general public alike. This combined with the Stop the Steal's propensity to attract white supremacists, militia members, and others who actively promote violence may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and the general public alike. You think? Two people familiar with the report said it was not shared widely outside the Capitol Police Force. An FBI official speaking on the condition of anonymity, because the agency has a policy of not discussing internal intelligence products, said, quote, at this time, it does not appear such a product was ever shared with the FBI through the normal intelligence sharing channels, end quote. A DC police official did not immediately respond to questions Friday about whether the agency was aware of the report. On January the 4th, the day after the intelligence unit shared its warning and conclusions with more than a dozen Capitol Police Command staff members, then Capitol Police Chief Steven Sund said he asked the Senate and House Sergeants at Arms for permission to put the National Guard on emergency standby. Chief Sund said House Sergeant at Paul Irving, who has resigned, and Senate Sergeant at Arms Michael Stenger, who has resigned, both rejected that idea and suggested he instead informally seek out his guard contacts, asking them to, quote, lean forward, end quote, and be on alert in case Capitol Police needed help. All right. So read the rest of this. somebody's lying, and it's it's lying on top of a cover up, possibly on top of a lie. It's like something's like really, really wrong here. Something's really, really wrong here. Okay. All right. Let's continue. I want to go to this other story here quickly, and we'll talk about this some more on our Sunday night show. But the more, because I got all these articles from different news sources, and I'm putting this stuff together, and it's like I'm not even talking about the tour. We talked about the tours the past couple of days that took place on January 5th. Okay, and a Democratic Representative Mikey Sherrill from New Jersey has been talking about this. And then we see that Ayanna Pressley and her office, the panic buttons were removed, things like that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about just the security preparation. There's something really wrong here. I want to go to this other article here from Associated Press. Then we're going to go from Dr. King. So Associated Press had a story that they updated, I think, a couple of times today. And the name of this one here is Feds Back Away from Claim of Assassination Plot at Capitol. Okay, at least for the time being. So federal prosecutors who initially said there was, quote unquote, strong evidence the pro-Trump mob that stormed the U.S. Capitol last week aimed to, quote, capture and assassinate elected officials, backed away from the allegation after the head of the investigation cautioned Friday that the probe is still in its early stages and there was no, quote, direct evidence of such tensions. Okay, now it is in its early stages. So I totally understand that. And at the same time, you're getting early in the week when they held the press conference of Department of Justice, 100,000 digital tips, totally, and that's not even including people calling in with tips. So I totally understand that. The accusation came in a court filing by prosecutors late Thursday, January 14th, in Phoenix in the case against Jacob Chansley. Now, Jacob Chansley is the Arizona man who took part in the insurrection while sporting the face paint, no shirt, and a furry hat with horns. Okay, quote, strong evidence, including Chansley's own words and actions at the Capitol, supports that the intent of the Capitol rioters was to capture and assassinate elected officials in the United States government, end quote, a prosecutor wrote in a memo urging the judge to keep Chansley behind bars, okay, to keep Jacob Chansley behind bars. But at a hearing for Jacob Chansley later in the day in Phoenix, another prosecutor named Todd Allison struck the line from the memo. Allison said the statement may very well end up being appropriate at Jacob Chansley's trial, but said prosecutors did not want to mislead the court and don't have to rely on the stricken statement to argue that he should remain in jail. Okay, prosecutors did not want to mislead the court, and prosecutors don't have to rely on that stricken statement. Okay, that the Capitol rioters, their goal was to capture and assassinate elected officials. They don't have to rely on that statement to basically keep him in jail. All right, now the court and don't have to rely on the stricken statement to argue that he should remain in jail. Ultimately, a judge on Friday ordered Jacob Chansley to be jailed until his trial. Now, early on Friday, Michael Sherwin, acting U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, backed away from the assassination claims, saying they have, quote, no direct evidence at this point of kill capture teams, end quote. No direct evidence at this point of kill capture teams. Now, Michael Sherwin, Michael Sherwin said there appears to have been confusion among some prosecutors, in part because of the complexity of the investigation and number of people involved. Prosecutors raised a similar prospect Thursday in the case of a former Air Force officer who they alleged carried plastic zip tie handcuffs because he intended, quote, to take hostages, end quote. The sprawling investigation involves multiple cities and jurisdictions, in part because so many of the rioters simply went home. So many of the rioters went back home. So now they have to investigate, track them down, go to their house, arrest them, serve them the warrant, etc. Only 13 rioters were arrested in the moments after the building was cleared. The FBI has been investigating whether any of the rioters had plotted to kidnap members of Congress and hold them hostage, focusing particularly on the men seen carrying plastic zip tie handcuffs and pepper spray. Although the assassination claim from the court filing was stricken by prosecutors, prosecutors did not back away from the statement that Jacob Chansley, when climbing up to the dais where Vice President Mike Pence had been presiding moments earlier, wrote a threatening note to Vice President Mike Pence that said, quote, "It's only a matter of time, justice is coming," end quote. So read the rest of this article here from Associated Press. Feds back away from claim of assassination plot at Capitol. They're backing away from the claim, at least for right now. All right, I want to go to this clip here. This is Dr. King from May 1967. He was interviewed by NBC News, and this clip, this interview dealt with beyond civil rights, Black power. Let's go to this clip.
In our country, is there something about nonviolence that made it, and I use that in the past tense, that made it more useful among Southern Negroes than the ghetto Negroes of the North?
I wouldn't say there's anything that makes it more useful to Southern Negroes. I think it is true that we've had more nonviolent movements in the South because the problem for many years was more crystallized and, in a sense, more visible in the South. We didn't have many civil rights activities on a massive scale in the North until 3 or 4 years ago. So I would say that we just haven't had a chance to experiment on a broad scale with nonviolence in the Northern ghetto. I have the feeling that nonviolence is as applicable and workable in the Northern ghetto as it is in the South. There's a larger job there. The frustrations at points are much deeper. The bitterness is deeper. And I think that's because in the South, we can see pockets of progress here and there. We've really made some strides that are very visible, and every Southern Negro knows that he can do things today that he couldn't do 4 or 5 years ago. Whereas in the North, the Negro sees only retrogress, and he doesn't find it as easy to get his vision centered on his target, the target of opposition, as he does in the South. Consequently, this is made for despair and at many points cynicism, a feeling that you can't win. And it simply means that we've got to develop in the North a massive job of organization and mobilizing forces and resources to deal with the problem in the urban ghettos of the North, just as we've done it in the South.
In the South, particularly in Alabama, you had visible villains: Jim Clark, Bull Connor, cattle prods, police dogs. But in the North, you don't have those visible villains. Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible?
Well, that's exactly right. And this is what I was saying when I said it's harder to see your target. In the South, in the nonviolent movement, we were aided always, on the whole, by the brutality of our opponent. It isn't the same way in the North. The other thing is that you don't have legal segregation in the North as you do in the South. So it is much more difficult to get people to see exactly what you're doing, but it isn't an impossible job. It's a hard, it's a tedious job at times to get people to be aroused from their apathetic slumbers, but I still feel that Negroes in the North can be motivated just as they were motivated in the South. And I think as time goes on with the growing economic deprivation in the Negro community, it will even be easier because people will come to see that not only is something wrong in general, but something is wrong in particular in their own economic and housing situations.
Well, what is it? I mean, how do you find it? It's very subtle in the North, is it not?
It's subtle, but it's becoming much more visible. Anybody can see that the schools are more segregated in the North today than they were in 1954 when the Supreme Court rendered its decision declaring segregation unconstitutional. Anybody can look around the ghetto and see that ghetto schools are predominantly segregated and devoid of quality. Anyone who moves through a major ghetto of our country will see the housing conditions. People don't have to be reminded that they are forced to live in slums in many instances, and they're often rat-infested, vermin-filled slums.
Pause right there, Kevin. Okay, pause right there, Kevin. Okay, hey, we're out of time here. We're out of time here on 910. Pause right there, Kevin. Thanks. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Those watching me on my Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael M. Hotep, keep watching. We're going to continue for a few more minutes on our social media platforms. We'll be back Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll share some more of this clip. If you like this type of information and you want to support the African History Network, you can donate through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Stay tuned for Pastor Greg Davis. We'll talk to you Sunday night. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Stand by. Okay, we're going to continue for a few more minutes here with a little bit more of this clip here. This is from May 1967. Dr. King was interviewed by NBC News. This is called After Civil Rights, Black Power. After Civil Rights, Black Power.
Passed in the early 60s, you couldn't point the finger anymore?
Well, there was no doubt about the hypocrisy of large segments of the nation on the whole question of racial equality.
Let me back this up.
In the North, is it not?
It's subtle, but it's becoming much more visible. Anybody can see that the schools are more segregated in the North today than they were in 1954 when the Supreme Court rendered its decision declaring segregation unconstitutional. Anybody can look around the ghetto and see that ghetto schools are predominantly segregated and devoid of quality. Anyone who moves through a major ghetto of our country will see the housing conditions. People don't have to be reminded that they are forced to live in slums in many instances, and they're often rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. And it isn't too hard to see the exploitation that the Negro confronts in the ghetto, where he is forced to pay more for less and constantly trying to make ends meet, but because of either no job as a result of unemployment or a job that is so economically unprofitable that the person can't make ends meet. And I think they see all of these things, and more they're coming to see them, because before, the people of the North were looking to the South, and they supported the struggles of the South. Now they're coming to see that their problems are very real, and they've got organized to grapple with them.
Was there something hypocritical about the fact that the South existed and the North could point the finger? And then when the Civil Rights Acts were passed in the early 60s, you couldn't point the finger anymore?
Well, there was no doubt about the hypocrisy of large segments of the nation on the whole question of racial equality. I think the best example is that many of the senators from the North and the West, and congressmen generally, who voted for civil rights legislation in '64 and even '65 with the Voting Rights Bill, refused last year to vote for civil rights legislation because it dealt with an issue applicable to the North, the whole housing question. And this, it seems to me, was the greatest expression of the hypocrisy of many of our citizens and many of the senators and congressmen of the North.
But isn't that part of the dilemma now? That people knew that Negroes were being denied what was guaranteed to them by the Constitution, by the fact that they were citizens of this country. Then when they were given those rights, do you feel the white community said, well, we've given them all that we have, now it's up to them?
Well, I think the dilemma is much deeper, and I think one during this period of transition has to be very honest with America. And honesty impels me to admit that America has broad racist elements still alive. Racism is still existing in American society in many areas of the society, North and South. And the other thing is that there has never been a single, solid, determined commitment of large segments of white America on the whole question of racial equality. I think we have to see that vacillation has always existed, ambivalence has always existed, and this to me is the so-called white backlash. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. I see the white backlash as a continuation of the same ambivalence and vacillation of white America on the whole question of racial justice that has existed since the founding of our nation. I think the other thing that we must see at this time is that many of the people who supported us in Selma, in Birmingham, were really outraged about the extremist behavior toward Negroes. But they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and all poor people. It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality and quality education a reality in our schools. It's much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we are getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality.
Do you think white people in this country, and I'm talking about non-segregationists, people devoid or thinking they're devoid of racism, do you have any idea of what they want the Negro to be in America?
Well, it depends on the level that we are talking here, because I think you have to make a distinction between the people who are genuinely and absolutely committed in the white community on the question of racial equality. And I must confess that I think they're in a very small minority. I think the vast majority of white Americans will go but so far. It's a kind of installment plan for equality. And they are always looking for an excuse to go but so far.
Why are they looking for the excuse? What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
That's a part of it. And that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here in chains, treated in very inhuman fashion. And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Apart from wanting to live better, which all of us want to do, to raise one's children in a better way, to be better, does the Negro in America know what he wants to be?
I'm convinced that almost every Negro in this country, other than those who have been so scarred by the system that they've become pathological in the process, and we all have to battle with pathology. Nobody really knows what it means to be a Negro unless one can really experience it. And I know we all have to battle with this constant drain of a feeling of nobodiness. But in spite of this, I think the vast majority of Negroes in this country know that they want to be people, they want to be men, they want equality, period. It just boils down to that. And we haven't been able to be people. We haven't been men because of all of the conditions that we've lived with and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding conditions, whether it's in housing, in the economic area, or in schools, or in the vicious credit practices that we face in the ghetto, and all of the problems of closed doors and constant defeats. But in spite of all this, I think we all know, basically, that we want to be men. We want to be persons judged not on the basis of the color of our skin, but on the basis of the content of our character.
But you know,
Okay.
the men.
All right. So we'll share some more of that interview on our Sunday night show. And that's from NBC News. This is from May 1967, May 8th, 1967, at Atlanta's Ebenezer Baptist Church, after Civil Rights, Black Power, after Civil Rights, Black Power. All right, so celebrating birthdays today, January 15th, we have Dr. King, of course, his 92nd birthday, born in 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. We have Regina King, I don't think any relation. Regina King, born January 15th, 1971. And we know Regina King from 227 as Brenda Jenkins on 227. And we know her movie that she directed, One Night in Miami. That's available right now on streaming services on Amazon Prime. She's an actress and director. She is the recipient of several awards, including an Academy Award, a Golden Globe Award, and 4 Acting Primetime Emmy Awards, the most for an African-American performer. Time magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2019. And she portrayed the character of Brenda Jenkins on 227 from 1985 to 1990. She rose to prominence with roles in films like Friday in 1995 and Jerry Maguire in 1996, and the crime television series Southland in 2009. She was also in Poetic Justice as well with Tupac and Janet Jackson. So happy birthday, Regina King. And then also celebrating birthdays today. Let's see. This is Kalita Sharp. I think that was January, was it 15th? I think it was January 13th, Kalita Sharp. Kalita Smith. Kalita Smith, 52nd birthday. We saw her on the Bernie Mac show, Wanda McCullough on the Bernie Mac show from 2001 to 2006. She was also on the Jamie Foxx show as well. And then other birthday celebrations are Mario Van Peebles. Happy 64th birthday to Mario Van Peebles as well. Actor, directed New Jack City, 1991. Also the movie Posse as well. And in 2003, he portrayed his father in the biopic Badass. So happy birthday to Mario Van Peebles. And then also Lisa of the Coat Jam. Now, I remember Lisa in the Coat Jam back when I was in high school. Lisa in the Coat Jam. They were bad. I think I still have their music on cassette tape. So Lisa was born January 15th, 1967. Happy 54th birthday to Lisa Velez, better known by her stage name, Lisa, singer and actress. She rose to fame in the 1980s as 1/3 of the band Lisa and the Coat Jam, with songs like I Wonder If I Take You Home, Can You Feel the Beat, Head to Toe, and Lost in Emotion, Move Your Body, All Cried Out. Spanish, the album Spanish Fly went platinum, peaking at number 7 on the album chart. Other singles from the album were the ballad Someone to Love Me for Me, and then Spanish Fly also, and Everything Will Be Fine. They had 2 back-to-back number ones. I remember seeing their videos on Friday night videos on NBC. There's a popular show that came on Fridays in the 1980s, Friday night videos. They had 2 back-to-back number ones with Head to Toe and Lost in Emotion. Okay, Lisa and the Coat Jam were bad, and then she was fine as hell too. There was a episode of Unsung on TV1. Then with Lisa and the Coat Jam. Everybody should check that out. All right, hey, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And then also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So the donations really help out, being that we're here 6 nights a week instead of 1 night a week. For 5 years, we were doing Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on 910 a.m. Superstation WFDF. But October 12th, 2020, we started doing Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight also. So we had 6 nights a week. So that helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Okay. And then also all of my DVD lectures are available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, my DVD lectures and digital downloads. And we have the bundle pack, the 8 DVD bundle pack, The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus. The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus. It's a 8 DVD bundle pack, includes double lectures I've done with Dr. David Imhotep. who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And then also one I did with Professor Kabahaya Wapakhamene, the Hidden Colors documentaries. We deal with the ancient African presence in the Americas, and we have some other lectures of mine in there as well. So it's the 8 DVD bundle pack, The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus. We also have a lecture I've done dealing with Dr. King, the distortion of the revolutionary Dr. King. What's the name of that one? Pull that one up. Because in this presentation, I do with the revolutionary Dr. King, and I break down the I Have a Dream speech that many people misunderstand, because the original name of the speech was not I Have a Dream. The distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the revolutionary, will not be televised on the television, okay? And this is a 2-hour lecture I've done. We have it in digital download and DVD format. The distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you Sunday night. Peace.